Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. As you can see, we're in the forest, so you know it's going to be a good one. As you can see, I'm joined with my guest again, Wrigley.
What's up?
If you guys can't tell what this video is going to be, look at the shirt. Gives it away, bro. Let's get into the video. Across the globe, from the misty rainforests of North America to the freezing deathly heights of the Himalayas, in the rugged sun-baked land of Australia, humanity shares a singular, terrifying, constant legend. A legend of a towering, bipedal, ape-like creature that retreats deeper into the wilderness the closer we get to it. We call it the North American giant Bigfoot, but in the world over, it has other names. The Yeti, the Yowie, the Erin, the Almas, and the skunk ape. Today, we are embarking into the evolutionary biology, the indigenous lore, and the documented sightings of every major species of these wild men. Are they undiscovered cousins of ancient humanoids like the giant Pithecus, a relic population of early man, or something else entirely?
Long before European settlers ever set foot in North America, Native American tribes deeply respected knowledge of the giant protector of the woods. In the Pacific Northwest, tribes referred to the beings as Sasquatch, the origin of the term Sasquatch, or wild women of the woods. These were not seen as mindless monsters, but rather forest-dwelling people and sometimes caretakers of the land who kept balance in the ecosystem. The lore wasn't a campfire story. It was a complex belief system tied directly to the rhythms of nature. According to extensive cryptozoological research and thousands of witness testimonies, the North American continent seems to harbor four distinct regional variations of the creature.
The first is the classic Pacific Northwest Sasquatch. This is the heavyweight champion, standing anywhere from 8 to 10 feet tall and weighing up to 800 pounds. This variant is heavily built with dark brown, black, or reddish-brown fur. They leave massive 15 to 18-inch footprints and are renowned for their incredible stealth. The second is the plains or desert Bigfoot. This variant is taller, lengthier, and much more elusive, often sighted in the rugged, semi-arid regions of the Southwest, such as Arizona and New Mexico. They are sometimes described as having lighter, paler, or reddish fur, locally known in New Mexico as El Cuatro.
Number 3. The sub-adult or juvenile, often mistaken for a small bear, but with a bipedal gait, ape-like facial structure. Witnesses describe them as more slender and active, curious about human camps, but keeping their distance. Number 4. The aquatic or swamp variants, including the famous Florida skunk ape or the Honey Island swamp monster. These are shorter, more aggressive, and genuinely smaller, about 6 to 7 feet tall. Adapted to wetland environments, they are infamous for their putrid, skunk-like odor. The most famous piece of evidence is, of course, the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film. Despite decades of skepticism, the fluid, muscular movement of the creature in the film continues to baffle biologists, but sightings occur every single year. From the Fook monster in Arkansas to the grassman down in Ohio, witnesses describe everything from rocks thrown at tents to paralyzing steam engine-like vocalizations.
Moving across the globe to the highest mountain range on Earth, we find the Yeti, inhabiting Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, and India. This creature is deeply integrated into the culture of the Sherpa people in Tibetan. They are often called Mogoi, which translates to wild men. In Sherpa, to the Sherpa people, the Yeti is not a myth. It is an elusive protector of the high peaks, sometimes regarded as a glacier spirit that brings fortune to hunting parties, or the boogeyman used to keep children from wandering too far into the deadly snows.
Unlike the dark, shaggy coats of the Pacific Northwest, the Yeti is universally described by the locals and explorers as having white, silvery, or light reddish brown hair. They are slightly shorter than their North American cousins, typically standing 7 to 8 feet tall and weighing roughly 200 to 400 pounds. Their massive and specialized feet structure allow them to traverse deep, powdered snow without sinking.
The Yeti broke into Western pop culture in the 20th century, specifically in 1951, when British mountaineer Eric Shipton photographed a massive unexplained footprint on the Menlung Glacier near Mount Everest. The footprint had a clear arch and unular ridge that baffled zoologists at the time. Since then, hundreds of expeditions have sought the Yeti, turning up hair samples that yield DNA that doesn't match any known living primate, yet remains fiercely debated by scientists.
If you thought the giant hairy humanoids only lived in North America and Asia, well, welcome to the Australian bush. Long before European settlers arrived, the Aboriginal people of Australia, specifically the Gadigal of Sydney and the Kuku Yalanji of the Daintree Forest, shared oral traditions surrounding a giant hairy being that roamed the vast, unexplored tracts of the continent. They have been given many names in the meantime, such as the Dulagar and the Thulagar, and Aboriginal law often depicted them as powerful spirits or ancestors immediately tied to the hidden secrets of the Australian land. British colonists first arrived in the late 18th century. They heard these stories and quickly applied their own vocabulary to what they were hearing. They labeled the creature the Yahoo, a name popularized by Jonathan Swift Gulliver's Travels to describe savage ape-like humanoids. The first official colonial sighting on record occurred in Sydney in 1790, and the sightings have only multiplied since.
The Yowie is frequently described as slightly shorter than the North American Sasquatch, typically 7 to 8 feet tall, but witnesses often categorize them as much more muscle-bound and fiercely territorial. They are known for a very deep brown or reddish coat, flat or broad faces, large fangs, and enormous disproportionate feet. In some folklore, they are said to construct temporary shelters from borrowed branches and mimic human or animal sounds to lure prey. Sightings cluster primarily along the Great Dividing Range and the dense forest of the East Coast. From a 1978 sighting by Queensland National Parks and Wildlife Service Ranger Percy Widow to modern-day encounters in the Blue Mountains. The pattern is remarkably consistent and overpowering. Foul odor, loud timber knocking, and a hulking silhouette in the Escalades.
Leaving the high, snowy peaks, we travel to the bamboo-filled mountains of central China, most notably the Shannon-Jia Forest Reserve in Hubei Province. Here, the creature is known as the Yeren, meaning wild man. Sightings of the Yeren date back thousands of years. Witnesses describe a creature that is relatively slender, standing about 5 to 7 feet tall, with a covering of reddish, brown, or grayish hair. The Yeren are said to be more primate-like in their facial features, perhaps resembling a large bipedal orangutan. The Chinese government even launched official scientific expeditions to the region to find the Yeren, uncovering strange hair samples.
What the hell is that?
It's the Yeren.
It's the Yeren.
And footprint casts that were made in Chinese research archives.
Moving westward into the rugged high-altitude ranges of the Caucasus, the Altai, and Mongolia, we find the Almas. The lore describes the Almas as more human-like than ape-like. They are often described as being slightly smaller than humans, extremely muscular with a receding forehead, prominent brow ridges, and covered in shaggy reddish-brown fur or dark hair. Interestingly, many cryptozoologists speculate that the Almas could represent a relic population of Neanderthals or Distovians that managed to survive in the inaccessible, harsh mountain ranges of Central Asia.
Further north, deep into the frozen Siberian wilderness, local legends speak of the Tutunya. These creatures are often described by the indigenous Yakut people as taller, more aggressive, and wearing animal skins or walking around completely hairless in certain patches, suggesting a more primitive human ancestor rather than a great ape.
So, if we have these massive hairy humanoids roaming every single continent on the planet, what does science have to say about them? Well, we've covered the lore and the sightings. But now we have to address the ape in the room. The most widely accepted theory among cryptozoologists for the origin of the Bigfoot and the Yeti is that they are the living descendants of Gigapithecus blacki.
This was a real prehistoric ape that roamed Asia up to a few 100,000 years ago. It stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed around 1,000 pounds. Because Gigapithecus was a great ape that walked on the ground, many researchers believe a small population could have migrated across the Bering Land Bridge or adapted to high altitude environments in the Himalayas and beyond, eventually developing a bipedal gait for better foraging.
For creatures like the Almas and the Urine, the prevailing theory shifts from great apes to humanoids, and it is entirely possible that various species of ancient human relatives, such as Neanderthals or Stovins, have never actually went extinct. Instead, they could have gone a kind of migration, retreating into the deepest, most rugged, untraversed biomes on the planet to avoid competition with Homo sapiens. Their larger, muscular, dense hair and use of cruel tools align perfectly with the wild men descriptions reported across Europe.
But the massive roadblock for mainstream science is the lack of a verified type of specimen, an actual skeleton, fresh hair, with established DNA mapping or a body. Skeptics argue that without a holotype, these creatures are merely misidentifications of known animals like black bears, grizzly bears, or even elk standing on their hind legs. However, the indigenous knowledge, the footprint cast with dermal ridges, and the thousands of independent, highly detailed eyewitness accounts keep the scientific door slightly ajar.
We've talked about the biological theories, but to understand the true depth of the Bigfoot, Yeti, and Yowie lore, we have to venture into the fringe theories, sorry for the train, that surrounds these creatures. Because for many researchers, the physical ape explanation simply does not account for the entirety of the evidence. One of the most compelling explanations for the fear response witnesses describe is infrasound. This is a low frequency sound below 20 Hz, which is below the threshold for human hearing. Animals like tigers, elephants, and these possible large humanoids can produce infrasound to communicate. When humans are exposed to infrasound, it doesn't sound like a low rumble. It physically interacts with the body, inducing a sudden unexplainable sense of dread, panic, and nausea. This would explain why experienced hunters and hikers suddenly feel the hairs on the back of their neck stand up and run away in terror without ever even having an interaction.
We also have to discuss paranormal theories. Because so many eyewitnesses report seeing these creatures disappear, vanish in a flash of light, or appear in places with absolutely no physical tracks. A growing idea of the research community is we might be dealing with something outside our current understanding of physics. Some propose that these beings possess cloaking abilities, psychic powers, or an awareness that borders on supernatural. For the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest, Sasquatch has always been intimately tied to the spiritual realm, representing the uncorrupted, untouchable wilderness. As we wrap up, we are left with a massive tapestry of legends and mysteries. Whether it's the classic Sasquatch of North America, the snowy Yeti of the Himalayas, or the muscular Yowie of the Australian outback, or even the Yeren of China, one thing is certain: humanity will always be drawn to the unknown.
These creatures represent the limits of our knowledge. They are the guardians of the wilderness, challenging our assumptions that we have mapped and conquered every inch of this planet. Perhaps they are biological apes waiting to be discovered, ancient humanoids living in the shadows, or perhaps they are something far more symbolic, a reminder that the natural world still has secrets. Whether they are flesh and bone or something deeply rooted in the collective unconscious of humanity, these stories endure because they teach us that there is still wonder in the world. They teach us to respect the untamed wild and to remind us that there are even places in the world that humans are only visitors and not the masters. I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's getting dark out here. It's getting real spooky. I tell you what. I hope you all enjoyed this video about Bigfoot and all of his, well, I guess relatives.
Yeah.
The fam, you know. I feel like there's Bigfoot out there.
Oh yeah, I believe so, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Wrigley might be joining again. Who knows? You know.
Maybe.
Who knows? All right. Catch you guys later.